Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. As you can see, I'm not in my home theater, but I'm up here in Tallahassee, Florida for the Florida Home Theater Tour. And we're up here at my friend Jay's home theater. This is a really cool home theater. It's in a relatively small space, but he's got a lot going on, and so I'm excited to share that with you in this video. We're gonna look at all the components. We're gonna talk about his journey in home theater. But before we jump into the video, I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsor, Silver Ticket. Silver Ticket has been around since the 1980s, offering a huge selection of projection screens at extremely affordable prices. Now, whether you're looking for a fixed frame from 80 inches to 220 inches, a curved screen for maybe a dedicated home theater, an ALR screen for a room with a lot of ambient light, a portable outdoor screen for a neighborhood block party, or if you're handy and you want to build your own frame, you can purchase screen fabric up to 425 inches. Silver Ticket screens are simple to install, extremely affordable, and they look absolutely fantastic. Visit their website at silverticketproducts.com. I'll also have links to several of their screens down in the description below, so be sure to check them out after this video. Well, Jay, thanks so much for inviting us into your incredible home theater. This is gonna be a fun one, man. We've spent probably 2 hours just hanging out, going through some demos. You've got a killer setup. You spent a lot of time, and we're up here in kind of, I guess what you call a bonus room.
Bonus area, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about, in Florida, we don't have basements, most people, and so we have to kind of build it above a garage or in a garage. So you've got a great space to work with. So why don't you just give us a tour of your home theater. We'll just start up here in the front. What do we got going on?
Okay. First of all, thanks, Michael, for coming and doing the tour up in here in Tallahassee. So
absolutely, man.
So in the front of the room, we're running a Silver Ticket 110-inch WAV screen. It's acoustically transparent, and I've got a Polk Audio LSI-M front stage, and so we're running 3 707 towers from left, center, and right, and then also have put in the triple black velvet that helps with the contrast, so,
yeah, so
to kind of make a black hole up here.
This definitely, it's kind of hard to film, so we'll try to put some lighting up here so you guys can see what's going on and definitely see that. So what size diagonal are you?
So this is a 110-inch, 16:9 ratio. And the reason I kept 16:9 is I like to watch live TV a lot, and they haven't, come to the scope content a lot on most live TV. We probably do 30% music up here, 2-channel music, 30% movies, and 40%, live TV. Yeah. And so I needed to maintain the 16:9 just, for the live TV. But I did create a masking panel. Yeah, it's a custom panel that just hangs right on top of the screen.
So can we flip this over so you guys can kind of see what's going on?
This is 6mm corrugated plastic wrapped in triple black velvet with a 1x2 on the top. So it literally just hangs on top of the screen, and I can shift the image using lens memory on the JVC NX7. And
so let's go ahead and put it up here. Let's just show.
So this just hangs up on the top, and you bring it over, and then
and just align it to the edge?
Yep, align it. It's already aligned, actually.
Nice.
So just align to the edge, and then we've got basically a scope screen.
That is
It took me about 10 minutes to build that. So.
And this does make a big difference. I mean, we're going to talk about your projector in a little bit. Your projector does have really great blacks, but you still can see that it's gray bars above and below. So by doing this, man, it just completely removes that and allows you to see just this big, wide scope image. So that's super cool, and something that's incredibly affordable, so you don't have to have electronic masking. And the way you've designed it, man, I love the convenience. One person can just easily set it up there and get that all together. So you've also got some more stuff going on behind the screen. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, I had this theater for about 15 years, and it was an acoustically untreated environment, and I had a really bad slap echo going on. And so I was working with Aaron Antunes from AZ Tuning, who's also affiliated with the Screening Room AV, and we actually designed the acoustic treatments, which includes behind the screen probably 24 2x4 by 2-inch panels of Owens Corning 703. Yeah. So behind the screen, and you may see a picture in the video, behind the screen is completely, you know, treated with the absorption. And then we have 2x4 by 4-inch panels behind each tower speaker.
Gotcha.
So when the screen's down, all you see is the center channel and then all of the insulation and then the 2 subwoofers, which are also an AZ tuning design. I'm not very handy,
right?
So
I'm with you, man.
But I wanted some additional bass. I have 2 Power Sound Audio TV 1812s in the rear of the room,
right?
But I just didn't feel like I was getting quite where I wanted to be. So I worked with Aaron, and he designed an enclosure. And instead of me trying to fabricate it myself, I went to a local car audio shop, and I plopped it down on the counter, and the car audio guy was like, "Heck yeah, man, I would love to build those enclosures." Right. So they were able to build it for me, and I brought it back into the theater and integrated it into the system and been super happy with those. It's about, I think it's almost 12 cubic feet ported design.
So these are big subs.
These are huge. They're tuned at 11.5 hertz, and I'm driving them with a Behringer amplifier, the NX6000.
Okay,
so.
Very cool. We'll get to all your components as well. And so there was something else. Oh, your speakers. So we've got 3 speakers up front. These are identical LCR. So tell us like what configuration you have here in your room with your speakers.
So it's a 7.1.4 setup with running 4 subwoofers on the 0.1, but I do understand it's really just a 0.1.
Yeah.
And then I have the 4 Atmos speakers in the ceiling. They're hard to see because everything's blacked out.
It's all just it disappears.
Yeah, so that's providing the Atmos effect. So I do have the processor that I've been looking for to do front wide, so I could run a 9.1.4.
Sure.
But I'm just on the fence right now on what speaker to do, whether I'm going to do, you know, a bookshelf on a floor stand or something like I have on the side walls, which is the 702 FX that's wall mounted. But I really want to keep my treatments because they've made such a huge impact. Yeah. So I think I'm probably going to do bookshelves on stands for the 2 wides.
Gotcha. So Jay, let's talk about even just the dimensions of your room. We're up on a bonus room, but tell us kind of the space, like what size is your bonus room?
Yeah, so, well, when we built the house, my wife and her best friend designed the floor plan. And I said, you know what, you can do anything you want to do in this house within reason, but the garage and the room above the garage, I want to design that. So we did it's about an 850 square foot garage. I'm a car guy. Yeah. And so above the garage, we did a combination room, which is my office. When you walk up the stairs, the first thing as you see is kind of an office and a gun room. And then, because that's the only place my wife would let me put my deer mounts.
Right.
And then you open the double doors into the theater. This theater is 12.5 feet by 22 feet with an 8-foot ceiling. So, yeah.
So definitely. So let's go ahead and take a good section of this video and talk about the acoustics. Now, Jay, when you first submitted your home theater for the tour, this right here seriously got my attention. I looked at this room and went, oh, wow, I haven't seen something quite this detailed when it comes to acoustics. So you've got a lot going on here. Kind of walk us through what types of acoustic treatment you chose, and I don't think you just kind of randomly threw them up on the wall. There's kind of a method to the madness. So walk us through that as well.
Sure, thanks. So I enjoyed this room for the first 15 years or so without any type of acoustic treatment.
Wow.
And I thought that it sounded pretty good. But I did know after doing some research and learning through, you know, whether it's your channel or online with AVS Forum, that, you know, treatments are such a critical part of any home theater. Yeah. And I understood that I had a pretty severe slap echo in this room. And so I didn't exactly know what the effect on a person was from that. But after 15 years of not treating the room, I knew that I had to do something based on, you know, what I was seeing. So I worked with, again, Aaron Antunes and the Screening Room AV, and we designed a plan for this room based on Anthony Gramani's design. Yeah. And so he's very popular in treating room and understanding acoustics and, you know, the things that go along with it. So and even though it looks like I have more than I should, this is actually around the optimal coverage. I think I'm running around 32 absorption panels and 36 diffusion panels, 2x2s. Okay. And so that equates to about 16% absorption, 18% diffusion.
Gotcha.
And the panels, there's 3 types of panels in the room. So they're made by Acoustic, and there's an absorption panel, and there's 2 types of diffusion. So forward of the seating position, I have absorption and 2D diffusion or combination panels. And then everything kind of behind or at the seating position and back is the same absorption, but moved to 3D diffusion.
Gotcha, and that's the Tetris look.
That's the
right?
Tetris look that people tell me they feel like they're in a video game.
It looks awesome though. This is so different. And even having a design of those are dark black and you've got the gray walls gives that nice contrast. So even visually, that's really, really cool.
So acoustically, even when we did the initial round of treatments, we did the 2D or the 3D diffusion and the absorption. And Michael, I was just blown away at the way it changed the sound of the room. And you know, I know that it's physics and this and that, but I just wasn't prepared for the impact that it was going to make, and I just was like, is this how a room is really supposed to sound?
Sure.
Because all my buddies, you know, they come over, we have a good time, they're like, man, this sounds awesome, but it really did make a huge difference. So if I had to go back again, I'd probably do acoustic treatments sooner, because I invested a lot in the equipment and the speakers over time, but I would say probably the single biggest impact in the room is definitely the acoustic treatments.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, because we think, man, you know, I want a little bit more, so we go buy a bigger amplifier. Or I want something, you know, something doesn't sound quite right up front, so I buy better speakers. When your room has a huge impact on how your speakers can perform. You can put the highest end speakers up here and have a horrible acoustic room, and they're not going to sound that great. Vice versa, you could take some less expensive speakers, put them in a well-treated room, and they can sound phenomenal. And so I think there's a huge value, and I was like you. I waited way into the game before I really began to add acoustic treatments to my room. I had the same thing, a nasty slap echo, and the easiest way to tell if you've got a slap echo, stand in the middle of your room and literally just clap one time really loud. And if you hear boing, yoing, 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 that's no bueno, okay? That's not good at all. And so you've got a lot of hard surfaces on your wall, and you need to treat those, or it's going to cause your dialogue not to be near as clear. That was my biggest issue. I'm going, man, I can't quite understand what they're saying, because you're hearing direct sound, and then a fraction later you're hearing some reflected sound, and your brain just can't process that, and so it's unintelligible.
Yeah, I did the acoustic treatments sort of in stages, so we were able to do the acoustic, the absorption first, and then the 3D diffusion, and it sounded, you know, a lot different. And then the process for the 2D, I think it took them a little longer to manufacture those.
Gotcha.
And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I just made a huge impact, and I really can hear it. There's no way that the 2Ds are going to really add that much, because there's only about 12 more panels coming, and I was thinking, okay, it's not going to be that big of a difference. Even treating the front of the room with the 2Ds was just huge.
Gotcha.
And it even changed the sound even further. It was a little drier without the 2Ds in the front.
Sure.
And so when I did the 2Ds, it even, you know, continued. The one thing I really love about the treatments is that I can listen at higher volumes now, and it really isn't as fatiguing on my ears as it used to be. Even though I may have my meter and my mic here measuring what the dBs are, it sounds a little bit quieter, even though it's the same dB level, and it's just the reflections that aren't there that's, you know, playing with your mind, I guess. So
sure, makes total sense. Well, and you've got them even back here on your door, you know, so even the sound that comes from your front sound stage hits this back wall, it has a potential of coming back at your front sound stage and kind of muddying that up. So definitely even adding those on the rear wall, that's a great option there as well. But this is, like I said, this is, when you sent me the photos, I went, whoa, this is a different space, man. This guy's getting pretty serious. So I love what you've done acoustic wise. So we've got 2 side surrounds here, and then you've also got 2 back surrounds. So tell us a little bit about those.
Yep, so to match the front stage, I'm running the LSI M series on the side surrounds and the rear surround. So on the sides, I'm running the 702 FX, and then on the rears, I'm running the 703s. And so those are kind of the flagship bookshelf from Polk before they released the Legend series. And so also in the ceiling, I've got 4 Atmos. Those are the 700 LSs. And they, they are an in-ceiling speaker,
Yeah.
but the thing I do like about them is that they do angle the mid-range and tweeter to the main listening position as much as possible.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it sounds pretty good. Happy with the Polk system.
Pretty good. It sounds amazing.
In the back, I'm running 2 Power Sound Audio TV 1812s, and I was, before the pandemic, I, had a little less of subs in my room. I had 2 Klipsch 12s.
Yeah.
And so I knew I could do better, and, in between con calls, I was looking at websites and ordering stuff, and so really happy with the selection of subs as well in the back.
So Jay, you don't have a massive room. Why in the world would you want to have 4 subwoofers in a room this size?
I think the biggest thing, Michael, is headroom. I mean, so I don't have to turn the subs way up to be able to properly fill the room. Yeah. I did have Aaron and Zach tune the system through my mini DSP. Okay. And so we've got a really flat curve, and they also did the Dirac live tuning. Yeah. And it really integrates well to me. I mean, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So.
Yeah. Well, it's phenomenal. I mean, you got quite a bit of bass, but it's very controlled. It's one of those things with anything in home theater, you can go overboard with it. You can take big subs and crank them way up, and they overpower your front soundstage, and that's not blending seamlessly. But when you dial it in, you calibrate it, you get some people that know more than you do in that area and help teach you and walk you through that, then you can take those 4 subwoofers because they interact differently depending on where you place them in your room. And so by calibrating those to where they kind of play well together, so they're time aligned and so they're EQ'd to your room, just gives you a really nice bass response in the room. So Jay, in a home theater, I think one of the most important things a lot of people even kind of neglect is your seating. But the reality is you're going to spend hours and hours and hours in here with friends and family. And so kind of talk us through why you chose these. And you've got 2 rows of 4, and let's go through that.
Yeah, so the seating is really nothing special. I ran Berkline seating in the theater prior to the HoverEze platform, but the driver behind these seats, I wanted to be able to seat 4 people in a row, just in case my family was watching a movie and we had another family over. And so, but the seating is really driven kind of based on the clearance under the seats. Oh. So I use a HoverEze platform, and I needed maximum clearance for the woofer under the actual seat. And the Berkline, since they had an electric recline, gotcha. The motor was right where I would have put, the subwoofer. So gotcha. I managed to swap out the seating, and they ended up being pretty comfortable, but they just had the proper amount of clearance for the platform.
All right, so you mentioned some things that some folks watching this video may not even have heard of, and that was a HoverEze. And you talked about having subwoofers underneath your seats, right?
Yeah, so the HoverEze platform, the concept is for tactile response. And so whenever a train crashes on screen or a gunshot, is fired out of a gun, the tactile feedback actually vibrates the seating environment so that you can feel the movie in addition to hearing it.
Sure.
The HoverEze platform, I found the concept through Aaron and Zach, and they sent me to the thread over on AVS, but the design is pretty simple. There's just a platform, which is a very rigid 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and then the subwoofers are mounted open baffle facing down, and then there's inner tubes, bicycle inner tubes, that are surrounding each subwoofer, and they're supporting the platform.
Gotcha. And so it kind of floats on these inner tubes. So now your kids go out to the garage like, Dad, what happened to my bicycle tires, right?
Well, there's some very specific tubes. So these guys go crazy on measurements on the forums. And so they've documented which tubes even work best on the platform. Okay. And then we went through a trial and error process, even the PSI, the amount of air that's in the tube. Yeah. So my inner tubes are 1.5 PSI, okay, and the outer tubes are 1 PSI. Interesting. And measuring the feedback using, there's an app on your phone that you can measure the vibration sensor, okay, or the feedback on your phone. You can determine which is the best amount of, response without going overboard and jarring, sure, your teeth, or, having too little of a response. So.
Yeah, so we were watching several clips, man, and it gets intense, especially like war scenes, when we're watching, remind me, was it Pearl Harbor?
We watched Pearl Harbor. We watched
there were several
Unbroken.
Unbroken, yep.
Lone Survivor.
Oh my goodness, man! When he shoots that long, not Lone Survivor, the one.
Oh, that was The Accountant.
The Accountant, when he shoots a long rifle, and it's like, you feel it. It's pretty intense, but again, I think it's one of those things, even with subwoofers, you have an opportunity to either just go overboard with it or you can dial it in. And there's definitely, on any system, you want to make sure that everything's kind of working cohesively together. And I think you've done a great job blending your subwoofers with that tactile response so that when you're in that helicopter, you kind of feel that movement like you would if you're flying in an actual Apache chopper or whatever. So that's super cool to be able to do that. Now, the back row does not have that, correct?
Not yet, but we do have, so the back row has yet to get its risers. One of the seats was on back order, so I had to wait a long time. I do have risers built for the back row to lift, you know, the seat so I can see the screen properly.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking into my options for, you know, with the riser and the HoverEze platform in the back. So
you might go with the HoverEze.
I do have the amplification in the rack that we'll talk about a little later, but yeah, so I'm thinking that we will do a HoverEze platform in the back. They're a little more maintenance because you have to maintain the air pressure in the tubes, but you know, it's not that hard.
Sure. So you mentioned amplifiers. I think that's a great segue. Let's head back to your rack and take a look at all the components that you've got in there.
All right. So in the rack, which is actually recessed into the attic, this is a bonus room above the garage. So outside of the walls you see is attic space. But in the rack I have this is a Middle Atlantic SR series rack, and it actually pulls out all the way from the cubby and rotates 90 degrees so I can access the back of the equipment. From top to bottom, I'm running AC Infinity cooling. We're intaking the cooler air from the room on the bottom of the rack and exhausting it on the top.
Cool.
I'm running a Panasonic UB820 Ultra HD disc player. I have an NVIDIA Shield for most of my streaming content, although when I do get serious about movies, I do have an HTPC that I'm running Mad VR on to take advantage of the tone mapping.
Sure.
I have a JBL Synthesis SDP55 processor that's running direct live. That's a new addition to the room within the last few months, and so loving that.
Now that'll process how many?
That processes 15 channels.
Okay.
I
so
think
that's
15.
where you were saying earlier you can add additional
I can add
channels.
the 2 front wides.
Gotcha.
Power distribution is through Furman, and then on the top half is mostly processing and source devices. On the bottom half of the rack is all my amplification. For the 2 front subwoofers, I'm running a Behringer NX4 6000, and so that powers the 2 front subs. And then the NX6000D is actually processing for the platform or powering the platform.
Gotcha.
That's the HoverEze platform. And the platform has a couple of Sundown Audio SA12s in it, both 4-ohm configuration. My base layer is the bottom of the rack, and that's a Emotiva XPA7 Gen 2. That powers the bed layer, and then I added the Emotiva BassX A700 for Atmos. And I will also end up using it for the front wides when I add those.
Gotcha. Very cool. I love the fact that you can actually get access to it in the rear of those components to be able to upgrade or change out cables, or even in the case earlier, we had to do a little troubleshooting. So that works out really, really well. All right, Jay, we're standing beneath a pretty behemoth of a projector. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is the JVC NX7 or RS2000 commonly known.
Yeah.
This is about the 4th projector that I've had in this room over a 15-year period. I started out with a small Mitsubishi HD 1000 back in, oh man, that was like 2008. And then I've progressively upgraded, had an Epson 5030 UB for a while.
Sure.
And then got introduced to the JVC line through, you know, the channel and other areas, and picked up an RS540 with pretty brand new actually, and really enjoyed that projector, enjoyed the blacks that it produced, but then wanted to try the HDR and the frame by frame, you know, HDR settings, and I found a good deal when the NZ7 or the NZ series came out on JVC. These NX series started flooding the market, and so was able to hook up with a fellow member online, and he was looking to upgrade, and so I put in the RS2000, and then of course I had Chad Billheimer down to calibrate it a few weeks ago. So very happy with the JVC line of projectors, and just the overall picture quality is just phenomenal
100%. I mean, I've got the same one. It's actually a beautiful image, got great colors, bright enough in this room because you've got it as close as you can to help with that, and just an overall great projector. All right, Jay, we've had a blast today checking out your home theater. I'd love to kind of pick your brain. I'd love to ask people about their journey. So number one, how did your home theater, like how did you get into home theater? Like what kind of inspired you? When did that process start?
So, I mean, as far as I can remember back, Michael, I've always been into music and audio and video and electronics.
Yeah.
I was always a gadget guy, first adopter of a lot of technology over the years. And so always had, you know, I remember for Christmas one year, my mom and dad bought me my first receiver. This was back in the 80s. It was a Pioneer receiver back in the 80s. And, you know, I used to hook subwoofers up and speakers up and just, you know, over the years. So I've always had an interest in audio and video and electronics. And it's just been a passion of mine. And I've always been a lover of music. So I like all kinds of different music. I like listening to music. And I remember even when I was younger, you know, I couldn't afford car audio in my first car, but as an adult, I did it in my, you know, vehicle. So just always been consumer electronics focused, and actually thought I wanted to be an electronical engineer when I was growing up through high school, but ended up getting into IT and doing an MIS degree at Florida State University. But have always been a love. I always tell people if I could make really great money doing, you know, AV, I would do it just because I love it so much.
Sure.
But yeah, just as a hobby now. So
I know you mentioned music and how much that is involved in your life, how much you like that and enjoy that. And that was something that near the end of the demos, you're like, oh, we forgot to kind of do some music demos, and we put in several tracks, man. And some people have the misnomer that you can't have good 2-channel and a home theater, and I completely think that's bogus because I experienced it here in your theater and other home theaters as well. And so I think that you can have both, but you got to have some planning involved in that. And so how did you kind of make sure that that was going to work out well in your home theater?
I think a lot of credit in that area goes to Steve Smith of Home Theater Gurus on Facebook. I mean, his instructional videos on how to tow in your speakers for proper, you know, main listening, and I mean, just he's got 40-something videos on how to set your room up, and really good acoustics apply to movies and music. Same. I mean, the principles are the same. So just using resources like that, you know, really helped make the room what it is. So.
Absolutely. So definitely go check out Steve. He's awesome, man. He and I are good friends. So check out his channel down in the description, Home Theater Gurus. He's got some great advice there on, and he's even building out a really cool home theater himself. Really, and cool. I was talking to him the other day about that. So let's kind of back up your story in this, in your home. Started about 15 years ago when you built this house. So let's back up 15 years ago. If you could go back and do it all over again, what would you have changed? What would you have done differently? Because I'm sure you probably, now that you've had a chance to experience this, maybe there's some things that you'd do differently.
Yeah. So my wife and her best friend designed the house. And I told the ladies, hey, look, we were getting together on Friday night, hanging out. They would do the house plans. And I said, look, you can have the whole house. But I said the garage and the room above the garage, I really want to design that. That's cool. So was able to kind of make this whole end of the house, you know, the man part of the house with your garage, your office, and your home theater. Looking back, if I could have done things differently, I mean, 15 years ago, really there were very few resources. Like YouTube wasn't huge back then, or I don't even know if it existed. But AVS Forum was there, and I did a lot of research on that website on how to do things. Even there was a site called hometheaterspot.com back in the day that I used as a resource. But you know, over time, just having those resources and using them. Things I would do differently, probably. I think I might actually engage with a professional designer on the room at the time of construction.
Sure.
So, I mean, I was pretty fortunate in that in this room, it's in the attic, so I can actually physically walk down each sidewall and access that if I need to pull a low voltage cable or add for instance, the 2 wides that are upcoming. But having that design ahead of time probably would save me a lot of time and money. You know, I've kind of figured things out over the years and kind of retrofitted the room to some degree. But that's definitely one thing I would consider if I was a new homeowner that was had the opportunity to design the home. I mean, think about, you're about to build a in many cases, $100,000 home. I mean, having, a basic room design for your dedicated room is not that expensive in the grand scheme.
Sure.
Other things that I would probably do differently, I was limited a little bit to the size of the room because it is a bonus room. If I could go just a little bit wider, I would. I mean, we have to slip by the seating.
It's a little scooch across on each side.
We slip by the seating as we're, coming to the seating. And the one thing I do want to do in the future is I'm going to delete this armrest and have the seats pushed together.
Gotcha.
It'll create more space on the sides. Plus, since I'm such a lover of music, I'll have a solid main listening position. Everything right now is focused right here in the room, towed in the speakers and laser aligned. But I think being able to sit in that sweet spot, I actually have a chair that I pull up from the back of the room and put in between the two rows so I can listen to music. So that's some of the things I would probably do differently, room size and having a proper design from the beginning.
Sure. And even with the proper design, again, going back to Steven, I believe he actually offers those services. You can reach out to him on his YouTube channel, even on the Facebook groups. He's over at Home Theater Enthusiasts, I believe. He's a moderator there. And I think he's even got his own Facebook group. So definitely hit him up. Super nice guy. And like you said, if you're designing your own room, you've got the ability to draw it out. You might as well do it right because, some people say, well, I'll just draw a square and I'll just put some speakers in there. And, well, you're going to find out a square room is the worst acoustics you're going to have. And so Steven can definitely help you out. And there's other guys out there that are definitely very affordable. And so I got one last question for you. In home theater, a lot of times we get this thing called upgrade-itis, and we, want to make some changes. And so you've got a killer room. I'll be honest with you. Experiencing this over the past several hours, there's not much that I would change at all, but there might be some things that you've thought about that you might want to do. So are there any upgrades for this theater in the future?
So I do have plans to add the front wides and have the 9.1 point. I may add 2 additional Atmos speakers to run a 9.1.6 setup. I have the amplification in the rack already for the 2 front wides. But that is definitely an upgrade that I'm considering in the future. Really, COVID has been heavy on the pocketbook for me because I've spent so much time in my office for the past 2 years. And, I travel for a living during non-COVID times where I was, out of the house from Monday to Thursday typically. And so being able to work at home and work in my office and maybe take a lunch break in the theater, I did do a lot of upgrades over the past 2 years. Including the subwoofers and the projector and the processor. But I think having the 2 wides, and I think even Steven released a video recently on adding the front wides, and so I am looking at that as potential upgrade. Other than that, I mean, I'm really pretty happy with the room, but it's been a long journey for me and something that I've been able to do incrementally. I mean, I remember when we first built this room, it was, I had an actual folding chair that I put right in the center to watch Florida State football on Saturdays, and was able to upgrade over time. I mean, even my equipment, instead of having the pull out and rotating rack, all my equipment was just stacked on top of each other back in the cubby back there. And of course, when you move into a new house, there's a lot of other expenses that may be prioritized over things like this. So, but it's been an incremental journey. But since I'm such a, lover of like AV and an enthusiast, it's been a fun ride for me, and really have enjoyed it just incrementally over the 14 or 15 years since we've had the house. So
absolutely. Well, Jay, this has been so much fun, and this is like one of my favorite parts. I love the gear, I love the speakers and projections and all that, but what really excites me are the friendships that I'm establishing by doing these tours, meeting guys like you, connecting with other people that have the same passion and drive for this hobby. That's super, super exciting to me, and I'm wanting to try to connect other people through the Florida Home Theater Tour and helping them to realize, oh, there's somebody kind of near me, and you've even connected with your buddy. And so that's just really super cool to be able to see people come together to enjoy the hobby, to learn from each other, to teach each other. and help each other spend some extra money.
It's so true. I've been wanting to find other people in Tallahassee that are interested in home theater.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to feature Randy's theater on the channel.
Yeah.
You know, I just happened to see a post that Randy made on Home Theater Enthusiast, and I knew that guy. I coached his son in flag football, and
so, cool.
so I reached out to him, and you know, he was able to submit his theater. And I mean, I'd love to see any other Tallahassee guys that are here, or even North Florida. I mean, I don't mind traveling, but I do love spending time with people. I'm a people person, and being able to see what people are doing and learn from has been huge for me. So I know it would benefit others.
Absolutely. So if you have a cool home theater, I'd love for you to submit it on my website, hometheatertours.com. And then there's also a question on there, would you like to be a part of our Discord server? And so the Discord group is just for folks that live in Florida, and that's the purpose of it, to get you guys connected, to help you find some other home theaters in your area so that you can learn from each other, grow, and just hear some cool experiences like this home theater. Well, Jay, this place is awesome. You've done a great job. And just from start to finish, I can tell you spent a lot of time in the planning and execution of this. And so I really hope that you guys get some inspiration from Jay's setup. And like I said, man, I hope to inspire you. And if you want to see more of content like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Well, guys, as always, hope you have a blessed day, and we'll catch you in the next video.